only bit which bewilders me when I sit with my financial planner once every 3 months. How do I plan for my children's higher education? Should I take the cost of 4-year professional college in India today and account for inflation over 10 years? 8%, 9%, that's at best what I would do. The first challenge comes when I'm doing this number. What is the nominal fee I should be looking at? Should I look at 2 to 3 lakhs spent over 4 years at a government-funded institute like IIT? Or should I build for a 12 lakh fee structure in a private college in this country? Then I'm rudely reminded by my financial planner, would I not look at a foreign education, considering the good colleges in India are just not keeping pace with the swelling population of youngsters who are getting to join higher education in the country. That's when the shock of how much do I need to save or the inability to come to a number really wakes me up. Welcome everyone. Today we are going to get to the bottom of how much is enough to secure our children's higher education, which inherently is the biggest financial goal of every middle-class Indian. Helping me understand that reality is my panel today, Amit Kokreja, financial planner. You've met him before on the show. Gauri Ishwaran, very well-known educationist and ex-principal of Sanskriti School. Naveen Chopra, the chairman of N. Chopra Consultants Private Limited, also known as the Chopras. It's a student counseling institute which helps students prepare for admissions and matches actually their skills to the kind of courses they should be doing. Gauri, Naveen and Amit, thanks very much for joining me. I think, Amit, you're going to help me understand whether that 8%, 7%, 8% nominal inflation that I take in terms of trying to build a financial plan or a corpus for my children's education is good enough. Because you send us some data which says even 8% inflation is not good enough when I'm looking at kids' higher education.
That's correct. Actually, if we look at the data of last 10 years, since 2001, the course fees, especially the professional courses fees, have not even doubled. They have trebled in some of the cases. The law schools and medical schools are heading the list. When we do the calculation, it has turned out to be that on an average, the educational courses cost has been rising at the rate of 12 to 14% per year, which means the educational cost could be doubling in 6 years, and in some of the specific specialized courses, it could be trebling in 6 to 8 years. So it's very difficult to keep track of how we plan this. And if you have aspirations of sending the kid abroad, then the foreign currency fluctuations are another issue to deal with. So it's an important
aspect. So that's the first point which has got highlighted, that 7%, which is the nominal inflation you would take to build your retirement corpus or to look at a future corpus for any big goal, is not enough when it comes to planning for the higher education of your children. Also look at some figures. Amit mentioned foreign education. Why do we need foreign education? Expenditure on higher education in India as a percentage of its GDP has remained stagnant at 0.37% over the last few years, according to ASSOCHAM. The percentage of GDP spent on higher education in countries like US, UK, China is 1.41%. So we are spending less than 25% of it. Such a tiny, tiny amount. ASSOCHAM findings also show that in India, public funding is low and its allocation is also skewed. Naveen, your institute helps a lot of children to go abroad.
Correct.
Is there a huge mismatch? We have 50% of our population under 25 and we are way away from being anywhere ready in providing them good education, isn't it?
That's absolutely correct. The situation from say 1996 through to now, there have been remarkable changes. On the positive front, to begin with, I mean, new courses have been introduced. A number of new institutions have come up. True, the quality can be patchy, and it is patchy. In some areas very good, in some areas not so good. Faculty have a lot to do with, other resources have a lot to do with it. Putting up infrastructure is easy. It's the faculty, it's the teaching side of the story. But when it comes to financials, there's no doubt about the fact that the demand-supply gap in India is still huge. What do you do with a 92%er who can't get into a course of her dream? I met a couple of students yesterday at LSR, 93%, and she was doing something that she was not what she really wanted to do.
Wasn't happy with the
course, but she got into LSR rather than go into a lower end institution to do the same course. I mean, it's a common story. It's a very common story. I think that, you know, on the one side, the upper socioeconomic strata, and that segment has increased over the last 15, 20 years. So, you know, there's a bigger band of parent professional who can afford an overseas education. So they say that, look, I mean, I want my child to have the best education that I can give. And they will then send them off to you know, a variety of countries, a lot of options. There's no doubt about that. As a matter of fact, now even Europe, for example, Germany is now coming kicking alive because cost of education in Germany is very low, but they're looking for very bright students. I
Very
mean, they'll
bright
stay, yeah.
students. So I'm going to bring in Gauri here because you've actually dealt with children who are very bright, haven't been able to. Naveen just pointed out to a girl 93% and she couldn't get the course that she wanted at Lady Shri Ram. You must be meeting and dealing with lots of children where maybe, like he's saying, do not fall in that socio-economic background where they can send their children abroad. What happens then?
Well, I think the end result is really tragedy because all these parents have the aspiration to send their children to the best. The children have the same aspiration, but there are not enough institutions going around. So the parents have no option but with a breaking heart to compromise and send their child to an institution well below par. And it's a guilt that stays with them. And the child actually very often ends up frustrated because when they don't go to the so-called accepted institutions, then the job opportunities also suffer. Because most of these hiring agencies look at which kind of a college you are coming from. So though they may have done extremely well wherever they have studied, and though they may actually be at times brighter than their counterparts in the other colleges, but they are denied an opportunity.
Do you really think that parents very, very seriously, I remember reading an article some time back and it stated a very, very simple fact, and that was the biggest luxury that Indian middle class is buying today is a foreign education for their child.
True.
Naveen,
True.
we are spending a lot of money in sending our children abroad.
Very true. I mean, I would hazard a guess in terms of the rollovers and tuition fees and living costs and parents visiting and stuff like that, that India is exporting 10 to 15 billion dollars overseas every year. If that money were invested in India, India would become an education destination where the Western country kids would be coming here to study. Why is it that our teachers go abroad and do exceedingly well? Why is it that our people, scientists and so on, go abroad and do exceedingly well? We have the human capital. What we are lacking is imagination. We talk of out-of-the-box thinking. Let me tell you about capacity, and I've been saying this to my friends in government and out whenever I've had the opportunity. You actually speaking just need to tweak the timings of your top colleges and add another batch.
If some parents can afford to send their children abroad, they can jolly well pay a much higher fee structure, and you can have, depending on the income of the parents, actually have a graded fee structure.
Either you have a graded fee structure or you build in scholarships. You know, because, you know, one of the things lacking in our Indian university system is there's absolutely no teaching plus research. All our colleges are like teaching shops. But, you know, where are you going to go unless there is a huge research backing? And if you want to keep the human capital that he's talking about, they will stay in India if you give them the research opportunities.
All right, so there's a lot which needs to be done with the education system itself, and I think that's something that all of us recognize. Everybody reads a story in the newspaper every day. Just sheer lack of infrastructure when it comes to higher education is quite mind-boggling. Amit, very expensive to study abroad? If my kid doesn't make it, what should I be planning for?
That's it. I guess the early stages of a life, kids are much more focused on activities which actually rejuvenate them a lot. So it'll take time, it'll take their natural course to figure out their interests and careers, and I'm sure by the time they're 16 they will have figured out what to pursue as a career option and as a professional life. So I just think you need to factor in an average growth rate of 12 to 14% in your education cost now, and then accordingly starts investing money to build up a corpus so that by the time your kid has reached the age mark of 16 or 18, you are kind of happy that you have built up something to be in a position to spend on your kids' education.
Would you say, Naveen, that if you can afford to, because a lot of us, we spend, let's say, 500 rupees on a cafe coffee day
Yes.
outing, right?
Yes.
Without realizing that the goal of building a fund for a child's education is that much more critical. Would you say that maybe if you are inching from middle class to upper middle class and have that wherewithal to cut down on some of your unnecessary expenditures and prepare for a child's foreign education, it is a good thing to do?
I would say absolutely. I mean, every parent. I mean, for Indians especially, a child's education is critical. That's how we have always been as a civilization. It's critical that in fact from the moment the child's born, that some fund be created, some sort of a small fixed deposit that can be added to as you go through,
Or
so
an
that or an education insurance,
Yeah.
exactly right. So that by the time the child is at the university stage, there is a fund sitting there. Now, if the child is bright and goes in and gets himself or herself scholarships,
That's
fantastic.
bonanza for you.
Fantastic.
You have that
Yeah.
saving, but you prepare.
Fantastic.
What would
But
you
you have
say
to.
are the cost of education today? A 4-year education, you mentioned a couple of countries, but give us some ballpark figure. This is, it would vary from college to
It
college.
will
But
vary.
I hear, and I can, from what I've researched,
Yes.
a US education 4-year college could cost anywhere between 70 lakh to a crore.
Plus.
Over a crore.
Over a crore.
Crore plus. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely correct. And you're talking of 4 lakhs. I mean, even if you went in for an MBA at a top institution, for example, in Harvard or Princeton or something like that, a 2-year program, you're going to spend a crore.
And
Yeah.
an ISP in India
It's-
is beginning to charge
it is-
international prices.
it
It's a
is
20
al-
lakh plus
no,
course
not
for
beginning.
1
It
year.
is charging.
It
It
is
is
charging,
charging.
yes.
It is
So
charging.
that's the way. Do you think, Gauri, going forward, we will see more privatization because it's a demand-supply mismatch, and you will have foreign universities coming in, privatization happening, and the current fee structure that I've just spoken about, a good government college, 3 to 4 lakhs, maybe even lower, 2 to 3 lakhs, is not going to be available 10 years from now, won't be that big an option for our children.
You see, higher education will costs will go up because you need good faculty. Like you said, we have to retain the human capital. If you want to have a good faculty, you want to have good research facilities, it's going to cost money. So I don't think it's a good idea for us to look at and say, let's bring the fees down, because we should not lower the bar of the quality that we want to offer. And if there would be many disadvantaged kids who deserve to be there, and the government should step in at this stage, and corporates, to provide the bursaries for these children to go.
Financial planning for education
It's
specifically
very
is essential.
important.
So that's a reality. We've got an amazing panel here, a very well-known financial planner, Gauri Ishwaran, an educationist, and of course Naveen Chopra, who heads one of the largest institutes when it comes to student counseling for higher education. Gauri and Naveen, thanks very much. After the break, we're going to continue with Amit because he's going to take a couple of your questions. And when we come back, we're also going to focus a little bit on an investment product that we believe is one of the most appropriate for saving for your child's higher education. That's balanced funds. And one of my most favorite CEOs of the mutual fund industry, A. Balasubramaniam of Birla Sun Life AMC, will join me to explain on why this simple product can work so well for you. Amit, of course, will present some of the products, insurance products, which are also could be a great vehicle for you to invest for your child's higher education. Thanks very much for staying with me on this LTM special on preparing for your children's higher education. We've had a very exciting debate just before the break and said that, look, cut out on all frivolous expenses. If you can, make sure that that big critical goal of your child's education is being met, or you're actually putting away money for that. When it comes to the saving options for your child's education, we do enforce a simple message. Insurance, yes, that can provide a lot of security. There are child insurance plans which also help you plan for their education, but they may not be the optimum product in terms of returns. So we say, why not mutual funds? And within mutual funds, the hybrid or the balanced funds which invest in various categories, balanced funds which invest 60% in equity, 40% in debt, work out to be a great product. Amit Kukreja, financial planner, who's with me here in the studio, will debate out both these investment options and tell you what works out better. Meanwhile, I caught up with A. Balasubramaniam, CEO of Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund. They have a fantastic product, Birla Sun Life 95. I'll come to the performance later and tell you how well this product has done. But I caught up with Bala to just figure out some basics of the product. Bala, let me start with an understanding of where Birla Sun Life 95 invests the money it collects from investors.
Birla Sun 95, of course, money is invested in 70% in equity, 60 to 70% in equity, and balance 30 to 38% invest in debt. The large proportion of equity is invested across sectors and across market cap, with a clear focus in terms of the companies in which we are making investments, how those investments will deliver actually over a longer term, taking into account the fundamental nature of these companies, which is high ROE, high ROC and high free cash flow kind of companies, which gives me margin of safety in the portfolio, at the same time provides the long-term return. And because the balance fund gives a cushion with respect to having 30% exposure to fixed income instruments, the equity portfolio also has got a reasonably good mix between the large cap and mid cap, which provides at times the necessary alpha, which otherwise one may not even get in the equity fund. And fixed income, 30% of the portfolios, one can always manage it in two ways. One, invest in extreme short trend and focus only on no volatile debt instruments return coming in. And second is we can run it like extremely high duration funds, taking into account the interest rate views, and which will come with some of the volatility. At the same time, it has got the potential of giving return. The way we manage Birla Sun identify fixed income portion of the portfolio, keep it somewhere around 1.5 to 2 years kind of duration, which essentially means the falling in the not in the extreme short run as well as not in the extreme longer end, in the mid segment of the market, which provides especially in the falling interest rate scenario, even at all point of time, it provides a stability to the portfolio from two angles. One is of course the coupon that gets accrued, and second is the marginal capital gain which could come on the portfolio in a falling interest rate market, as well as the marginal capital loss which generally comes in the rising interest rate market, and that's the way the portfolio is managed.
Okay. Is up to 40% of investments in debt or safer options a good enough cushion to protect the investor from the stock market volatility and keep the investment growing for a critical need such as a child's education?
From investor's point of view, 30-35% I think is enough cushion. I think we'll have to look at balance fund such as Birla Sun as an alternative to investing in a pure equity fund, as well as it takes away the headache of allocating money between debt and equity. Which is what I think most of the people tend to drive at by investing in pure equity and by investing in pure debt, and try and arrive actually the very purpose of investing in the balance fund. 30-35% I think is reasonably good exposure to the debt. That doesn't mean that that is actually very aggressive equity oriented portfolio. Even as it is from the equity definition of equity. From the investor's point of view as well as from the income tax angle, 65% of the money has to be invested in equity. 60 to 65% of the money has to be invested in equity, which provides the scheme eligible to be treated in the books of investors as equity schemes, which provides the long-term capital gain tax 0 and then short-term capital gain tax about 15%. By investing actually two different set of schemes, one is in equity and one is in debt, you naturally of course get the benefit of long-term capital tax benefit in the equity, whereas you don't get the similar kind of benefit on the debt. Whereas in balance funds such as Birla Sun provides the best of both worlds. And 68% exposure to equities, though it may be considered as aggressive, given the fact that the longer term performance of balance fund, and also given the fact that every 3 years the equity market goes through a volatile period. There are times where the equity market has got one-way run up, and there are times where the equity market has turned volatile and also given one-way downside return. Last 2 years is the pure examples. In these kind of scenarios, the portfolio also tend to get rebalanced between the debt and equity on an ongoing basis, without making any kind of scientific adjustments, without making any kind of discussions. That itself in some sense bringing in an inbuilt-in discipline actually for the fund to perform at all point of time. Maybe that's one of the reasons why the balance fund, especially the Birla Sun which comes in the balance fund category, has been able to deliver return over a long period of time, with not just beating actually the diversified equity funds in the same category, it also beaten the benchmark, whether it is Sensex or an Nifty, with a substantial margin.
A. Balasubramaniam, thank you very much for joining us here and giving us those details on the product. Birla Sun Life 95, that's the product we were discussing, and here's a glimpse of its performance. The fund was launched in 1995, so it has a long track record. Since launch, look at the returns that the fund has given its investors, 22.58% annualized. That's actually, by any category or any benchmark, fabulous performance, isn't it, Amit?
Sure.
Balanced funds with 60% equity exposure also get treated like equity funds, so they are better on taxation. They have no tax. Then, just let's take a look at this fund's performance over the last 3 years. In this period, the returns are 26.65%. Yes, you heard me right, 26.65%. But remember, this is not static. The performance does keep moderating in certain time periods. If you look at a 1-year time period, they're much more moderate, but still a very strong 10%. Birla Sun Life 95, definitely one of the good 4-star, 5-star category fund within the balanced fund. But Amit, the big question here, there's a lot of advertising hype around the insurance plans for children, which also help you plan for a children's education. Weigh that out versus what we on Let's Talk Money keep saying, a good hybrid or a balanced mutual fund combined with a term insurance.
See, I would always go with mutual funds combined with the term insurance. If you can spend a little bit of time every year on your investments, then nothing can beat mutual funds because they are professionally managed, they're well driven by the mandate and the very clear-cut objective of the fund management house. So mutual funds, you can choose the hybrid ones. If you don't have an appetite for risk, you can choose hybrid funds, and in the hybrid funds you have multiple options. Ones which have 70% of equity, 30% of debt, which give you huge tax advantages as well. But they have
Like
the risk
fund.
like a balanced fund. They have a risk element in it as well. Second is a mutual fund which can have 70% debt and 30% equity, and there are funds which have the combination of gold, debt and equity now.
Manoj Kumar Pradhan has a question for his child's education, joins us from Chennai. Manoj, hi, sorry to have kept you waiting. Go ahead, how can we help you?
Actually, I have a 1-year kid and I am planning for his education. Can you please advise how much I have to save?
Simple math, if you save 4,000 rupees a month for 15 years, and if that money is growing at the rate of 12% per annum, that money is likely to become a corpus of almost 22 lakhs in 15 years or 33 lakhs in 18 years, provided you are continuously investing that money on a monthly basis. And if you are trying to save 11,000 a month, which is growing at the rate of 12% per annum, that money is likely to become 60 lakhs in 15 years and 90 lakhs in 18 years. That's the benefit of compounding, and 12% is a decent return. So if you have some of those numbers in mind that you would like to have a corpus up till this number in 15 years, then you can start planning. So these are two simple numbers that I shared, 4,000 and 11,000, to get you to a corpus of 33 and 90 lakhs respectively in 18 years time frame.
Are there certain mutual funds that you like and would like to recommend him to put his money into?
Sure, there are certain hybrid schemes that are becoming very popular from the child goals, education goals perspective. To name the few of them, HDFC Children's Gift Plan, the savings as well as the investment. The savings plan is actually debt-oriented hybrid scheme. The investment plan is actually equity-oriented hybrid scheme. And the third one, which has also become recently very popular, is ICICI Prudential Child Care Steady, the debt plan, which is obviously the hybrid plan with the debt orientation.
Thanks very much for joining me today here on Let's Talk Money. Amit, always a pleasure having you with me here in the studio. Just a reminder to all of you that you can send us your money questions at money@ndtv.com or call us at any of the numbers flashing on your screen. And another reminder that we are going to be launching the property show on Monday, 13th of February. This is all about buy, sell, invest in property, even any of your finance or legal issues that you might have around property that you've shortlisted. You can write us for that show at property@ndtv.com, and don't forget to tune in at 7 p.m. on Monday, 13th of February. That's it from me. I'll see you again same time next week. Goodbye.